Good evening and welcome. On tonight's show, joined by Mark Stallard. Now, that's a little bit better, isn't it? A 6-1 defeat of Barnet puts a rather different complexion on the National League promotion race. Lots of ups and downs to come, I think, yet. Still out of the playoff positions in 8th, but I, for one, am not giving up on automatic just yet. Eli Sam, the renaissance continues. A brace for the big man and an FA Trophy trip to Halifax on Saturday. Who's going and what team would you pick for Saturday? We're joined tonight by Mark Stallard and Chloe, who will be with us very soon, and this little furry friend who... Cats and football are all the rage at the minute, and this one is claiming to be the world's first football podcast cat. Don't abuse him, whilst it might cost you £250,000. So treat him carefully. He's obviously black and white. Stells, you've got a cat yourself as well, haven't you?
No, I've got a dog. I've got a dog, not
sorry.
a cat. But, yeah, Mrs. wants a cat as well, but we're in the process. Well, we're going to be moving house in the not too distant future. So yeah, she wants one at the new house. Won't get one at the old house, obviously. Well, at this place, because yeah, that doesn't bode well, does it? But yeah, very animal loving, and yeah, say the less said about Kurt Zuma, the better.
Yeah. Although there's another story about cats, wasn't there, last night? Here he goes. I think he's going to go off into his little box. There was the one at Sheffield Wednesday. Did you see that? Ran on the pitch.
Yeah.
And the backstop to that is they took it to the vets afterwards. And it's chipped, and apparently had been lost for 6 months, and it's now been reunited with its owner in Sheffield. Oh, wow. And apparently one of the relatives or neighbours was saying, "Oh, that looks like the cat you lost 6 months ago," and it was.
Wow. Oh,
there you go. Small world. But first things first. We are obviously going to address this, and there has been quite a recent development in the past couple of hours. I think we will all be aware. There was an alleged racist incident that took place last night at the club, which led to the game being temporarily halted when one of the Barnet players was racially abused from someone in the Kop while taking a corner just before half time. That person, I believe, has been ejected. The police have now been called. Rob Hall, the player concerned, has issued a statement in the past hour or so. It's actually a very good statement. I mean, I have certainly written plenty of statements for footballers down the years, and a lot of the time you kind of ensure that it says all the right things politically, correctly, all the rest of it. This statement, I think, has very definitely been written by Rob himself or with the help of a family member. I'm just going to read it all now because some of you may not have come across this statement yet. So this is from Rob Hall, the player who was racially abused in last night's game. So Rob has put out this evening, I'm here to do my job as best as I can, whether I'm doing good, bad or average. I'm not here to be abused like that. It's not the reason why you want to be clapped off a football pitch. But for the opposition fans, i.e. Notts County, to clap me off in the manner they did for such a situation showed me this is just one silly individual that, to my knowledge, has been dealt with and won't return to a football game at that stadium again. Thank you to both sets of players on the pitch last night. My players backing me is no surprise because of how close we are, but the support Notts County applied was great to see. From messages from their skipper, both on and off the pitch, and other players, I really appreciate. Also, thank you to the supportive messages from both sets of fans. The way Notts County handled the situation, I don't think could have been any better, and again made it clear that this was one idiot out of 5,000 plus people there. That was from Rob Hall, the Barnet player who was racially abused last night. I don't think we can say better than that, can we, Sal?
No, I think that's superb from him after what he was subjected to. I think it's got to be said that the players of Notts as well, and the stewards and the rest of the fans around it, because we heard some rumours of what happened at the game last night. But yeah, first of all, Rob Hall and the rest of the Barnet team deserve massive, massive credit for being willing to carry on in the current age, in the current climate. They'd have been well within their rights to have walked off the pitch and the game would have been abandoned and null and void or whatever would have happened. But that's by the by. The fact that they they showed they were the bigger men, and the quality of the statement that he's come out with today, is a credit to him. And again, and I said it on the radio last night, that what Kyle Cameron said post-match, and his actions at the time were absolutely superb. And we're talking about young men, mid-20s, having to take responsibility, having to own something that isn't theirs, isn't their doing, and that's sometimes footballers rightly at times, as we've seen, get a lot of vilification, but sometimes they deserve plaudits. And I think both sets of players certainly deserve credit for last night.
Yeah, I don't think we can say much more than that. We know that the police are now involved with the individual concerned. Chris Gosling says, class statement. Duncan Comrie, racism should not be tolerated in any situation. How did you feel about the game possibly being abandoned? Surely this opens up situations that could be abused. I guess it could, but I think that's not a reason not to pursue it with the way the authorities are. And I think also, we shouldn't sweep these things under the carpet. 10, 11 months ago, Notts had an incident themselves involving the assistant to Ian Birchinall, Maurice Ross. He was dismissed as a result of comments made about his own players. And when we did a podcast with Richard Brindley at the start of the season, he spoke for the first time about that incident, about how the players felt with those comments from Maurice Ross and how they approached the club. And the club then dealt with it very quickly and efficiently and professionally. And Richard also made the point that he'd been subjected to racist comments on social media while he had been, I think it was at Chesterfield. This was a few years earlier. And Richard mentioned that basically the club had said to him, don't do anything, let's just leave it, and was kind of told to sweep it up under the carpet and not address it. The way Notts dealt with Maurice Ross last year and the way this incident was dealt with last night, clearly these things should not be happening. But I think with the way that the game is now approaching it, there are systems and protocols in place for it to not be swept under the carpet and to be addressed properly still. Yeah.
Absolutely. It should never have to be swept under the carpet. That, it doesn't matter what the problem is, sweeping things under the carpet just lead to bigger and bigger problems further down the line. Like I say, it needs addressing. We all know it's there. We all know there are elements of society, and it is society. It's not just football, but football is the conduit that some of these members of society unfortunately use to allow themselves to act like morons, like idiots, and have this disgraceful sort of behaviour and allow it to come out in public. But it should not be swept under the carpet. It should be dealt with, and the only way to deal with it, and it will be, you're maybe never ever going to solve it, never going to cure it. But the only way to deal with things is to address it head on. And I think that last night was an example of the club, I think, take great credit for it. The statement was already out at half time that it was being dealt with. The stewards, the fans around him in the Kop, the good quality fans that we know that Notts County is associated with, to my ear, they got him out as well. They got him identified and got him out of there. And he will be dealt with quite rightly. They will be dealt with, and we hope that is the one and only incident we have at Meadow Lane forever. There's no place for it.
Okay, we've addressed it top of the show, and I think no better than Rob Hall with that statement. That's on his Twitter feed if you wanted to go and have a study of that statement. That came out a couple of hours earlier than the launch of our show. Okay, so ups and downs. We preach it every week. You talk about consistency, Stel. It's a different place to how it was on Saturday evening. It helps, of course, that just about every result went our way yesterday as well in terms of the top teams, and I think some people were saying, oh, it's gone, 12 points, no chance. 4 days later, it's a vastly different complexion. How needed were the 3 points and that performance last night?
Well, they were essential. Really, the 3 points were essential. The performance, ordinarily, I'm not too worried about it. It's points first, performance secondary. But on the back of three disappointing results and disappointing performance, certainly second half against Grimsby on Saturday, you want to bounce back and you want to right them wrongs. And they certainly did that in emphatic fashion last night. The league definitely looks a little bit more friendly given the results that went our way last night. But it's still, we're playing catch up massively. So we thank Barnet for being absolutely atrocious on the pitch last night. They've done us a massive favour, if nothing else, with the goal difference we've got off them this season. So plus 10 for the 2 games we played.
Yes, we are, aren't we? Yeah.
But it was important for confidence. I think that 3 games didn't become 4 and then maybe 5. You get that win, you get back to winning ways, and I'm not saying that it was all doom and gloom, but I said after Saturday, I think realistically, have we just kissed the top? I'm talking about the very top spot, the one promotion spot. Have we just kissed it goodbye with that defeat against Grimsby? I think there's a very real chance we might have done. When you think about, okay, Stockport top of the table, but Boreham Wood are 4 points ahead of us, and they've got 2 games in hand on us. And they're not going anywhere, and they're not conceding goals. So very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. We've got to play catch up. You're relying on other teams slipping up, and there are multiple other teams we need to slip up, and we need to go on this run. So only thing they could do was win the game last night. Now they've got to focus on the next game and attack it like that. But a vital win, a really good performance, but there will be tougher tests down the line.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we were speaking just before the start of the show. On the evidence of that 90 minutes, you would say, crikey, how are Barnet not where Dover are? Just on the evidence of that 90, but they came in on Tuesday night on the back of a 2-0 away win at Aldershot. If you look at the league, they ain't going to go down. Yeah, they're bottom half, but they ain't going to go down. How well do you think Notts played, and more importantly, how well do you think Notts started the game, which dictated it, or do you think Barnet had a bit of a hangover? We heard the manager talk about 1 or 2 players carrying injuries, but if you look, for instance, Grimsby, who, let's be honest, looked very good, played us off the park second half. Home game against Kings Lynn, 0-0.
And that's that beautiful inconsistency of the National League, isn't it? From Saturday to Tuesday, it's almost like 2 different teams have gone out. In terms of last night, I think Notts were excellent. And I think, importantly, they started the game really well, really on the front foot, ruthless. Yes, you can say afterwards that, Barnet were wide open at times and they didn't put too much of a defensive shift in. But I think the first 10 minutes for Notts wins the game. Because then it's down to Barnet. They've got to come out and they had a bit of a threat going forward. Let's make no bones about it. I think it was 8 corners they won. They had plenty of territory and a bit of possession, but it seemed like the players only wanted to run one way, and they didn't want to do too much back the other way. So the first 10 minutes, we've been saying it all season that we love to get a real flyer out the traps, and that was last night. And Big Eli's got to take a bit of credit for that because he was sensational. Big credit for him being patient. He's not had hardly any game time, any chance. He's had a couple of sub appearances and where he's looked lively, looked like he could make something happen, and he's earned himself a start. Given on the fact that 3 games before that, nobody could argue about being dropped, and he comes in. So whenever you get a shirt, I always say you've got a chance. And last night he grabbed it. And now the gauntlet for him is you're going to start. Well, whether he starts Saturday, I assume he will because he's not had too much football. But you're starting Saturday, go and grab it again. Go and take your chance Saturday. Go and really cement your place and make yourself undroppable. It's always the same challenge to any player.
Welcome to Chloe. Chloe's put a shift in at the ticket office. Hot-footed it up to Manchester. Just got there. So we've spoken already, Chloe. You may have missed it. Rob Hall, the Barnet player, put out a very good statement in the last couple of hours, which is very good. We're talking Barnet. From your perspective, what did you make of last night? Was it a surprise? Was it a relief? Did you kind of expect that?
I think more of a relief than anything. I know we've got it in us to play like that, and we can do it against anybody. It's just when that's going to happen. You can never predict which game it's going to come for. And to be fair, if we could predict it, I think all of us could probably say Barnet, because we end up scoring 4 or 5 past them every time. So if we were going to pick one, it was going to be Barnet. But yeah, it's a great relief, especially after the Grimsby game. Nice to get back at home and then kind of rectify a few mistakes. Had a few changes as well, and I thought all of them played brilliantly. Especially we've got to speak about Eli Sam. I mean, we could go on all day about how good the performance was. Again, as I always do, missed some goals, but no fault of my own this time. I was in the ticket office, so I missed the first 2 and the last one. So as soon as they get them posted, I'll be having a look. But I've heard that I've seen the best one, Eli Sam's second, so I'm glad I was there for that. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyable, and the mood's lifted already. So hopefully we can push on, see how we get on in the trophy, then back at it in the league.
Hey, don't think Barnet's keeper will be wanting to see that first one again, will he, Stell?
First one, second, third, fourth. I don't think he covered himself in glory, their keeper last night, but that's to take nothing away from Notts, who were ruthless.
Absolutely. Plenty of people coming on this evening. Shaymen Talk, the Halifax podcast. They're got a watching and listening brief, and no doubt we'll be bringing up the last 10 minutes of the game last time shortly. Derek Gill says, how many supporters received a message from BBC Sport last night to say the game was postponed? I didn't quite know what was going on. I mean, I thought it was just someone winding people up, if I'm honest with you, on social media. But yeah, I mean,
just on that, Paul, I have got the inside story on that.
Go on, Stell.
And it's not exciting, so don't get build up. But yeah, apparently what happened was that the press association dish out the text or whatever it is for BBC, ITV, and Sky, and they probably just took a screenshot photocopy, as it was, of the previous game when it was postponed, and that's why it was showing on all of them as a postponed game. That's what David and Charlie told me to tell you. And believe me, Jason Turner turned up about 20 minutes before kickoff, not looking best pleased that he was asking why this was. So yeah, that was the reason. Apparently, it's the press association is the reason.
Oh, right, because I just thought it was one of these social media wind-ups, because I always get there ridiculously early, watch the warm-ups and all that sort of thing, saddo that I am. And I could just see bits and pieces. But I'll tell you one thing. On Saturday, Grimsby, I forgot my phone. I hadn't realised, and I get to the ground and I'm pockets. Have I lost it or whatever? And obviously no one can contact me. Transpired I'd left it at home, but obviously no one could ring me to tell me that. And it is and we should all do this, because I don't necessarily use my phone a lot during the match. Like some people are on it all the time, aren't they? That are the bets winning, WhatsApp groups, you name it. I didn't have a phone. And as such, you concentrate. And this don't apply to you, Stel, because clearly you're commentating. But Chloe. So I'm watching and focused on the entire 90 minutes. Every kick a ball, head not moving away. And I tell you what, you get a totally different perspective of the game, because you are not being distracted every minute, 2 minutes. How's me bet going? What's this doing? Oh, what something's had a beep. There's a message. And we should all try it. We should just ditch your phone, give it someone else, whatever, and you view the game through a different lens. I promise you. Are you on your phone much, Chloe, during the game or not?
I tend not to be, especially when I'm missing 20 minutes. I got to see as
well,
much as I possibly can. So I tend to have the other results pinging. So that's when I tend to check. Other notifications, I try to ignore as much as possible. Obviously, if you see a text or anything like that. But I must admit, I'm one for, especially nearer the end of the game, having a look what everyone around us is doing. But yeah, so
yeah.
it
There are
varies.
some people complain about 20 quid a game, and if you look, they spend more time with their head down in the phone than they do actually watching the game, unquestionably. Okay. Chris Gosling, use the phone to check the other scores. That's it. Inspector 71, here's a good one. 4 at the back. Discuss. Stell, here's one. When you saw the formation last night, did you work it out straight away what he was doing, or did you think, oh my goodness, is Kel Roberts playing left wing back again?
Well, I must admit, to tell you the honest truth, me and Charlie met up in Gollings later in the media suite, and we'd got the team, but we didn't know the formation. So we're looking at it and trying to puzzle it out. Both of us got it wrong. Both of us got it wrong with 2 different formations.
I went
both of us got it wrong.
Yeah,
and like I say, it was the 4-2-3-1. And look, of course, people will now claim that is the absolute answer. We should have been doing this all along because, hey presto, we've won 6-1. I don't imagine he'll change it too quickly. Let's see where we are after a few games. It certainly worked last night, so you can't say anything about it, anything bad about it. We'll see whether he perseveres with it.
Chloe?
Yeah, I think Ian put it perfectly. I think it was Charlie that interviewed him afterwards. I got a chance to watch it earlier. And he was like, it's going to work some games, it's not going to work others. So we're very analytical as a club, the way we're ran at the minute. So they've got to be looking into what's best. I think he saw that, is it Mason Clark, their striker, that he would be playing because their other striker they'd sold. So it's kind of very clever that I think the same as you, Stal, that I kind of had a quick look at it in the ticket office. I only got a quick glance, but because I saw Roberts' name so high up the list, I was like, oh no, not this left wing back again. But no, it worked perfectly last night. But again, I don't think we've got one system, which is nice to see a change last night as well, because we have kind of seen a similar formation for kind of the season so far. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see some fresh faces. Again, Adam Chickson doesn't put a foot wrong. And I know the manager's said that before, and it's so difficult because we've got good players in that position. But every time he comes in, I can't fault him. But it worked perfectly last night. I don't know what he's going to do on Saturday because it's a bit of a weird one with it being the cup. I don't know whether he's going to go for it, keep some minutes in legs. Obviously, Sam might be carrying a knock. So again, it's your guess as good as mine about Saturday. But yeah, it totally works this time. But like Stel says, it's not necessarily going to work every game. And this doesn't mean we're sticking to it from now on. But I enjoyed watching something different on yesterday.
I did notice, Stel, with some of the interviews on after Grimsby Saturday, both manager and captain spoke about perhaps the need to change things a little bit, have slightly different options. Kyle in particular spoke a few words. I thought it was a very honest interview. So I wasn't massively surprised. Like you, clearly he's not now going, well, I would have thought so, switch to 4-2-3-1 for the rest of the season. Do you think he just might, and because he mentioned this in the interview to Charlie after last night, do you think he might just start changing around the formation a little bit more than he previously has now?
I think he possibly could, because what I would say about Ian Birchall, I think he's a very proactive manager. Said this on the radio last night. He like I say, he's prone to making half-time substitutions. If he sees something isn't working, he's not scared to change it. Now, we've had 3 games of indifferent performances, let's be honest. Poor performance, second half against Grimsby particularly. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of, right, I need to change something. And he's changed and gone with a back 4, which people might say, well, he did at Kings Lynn in the second half, which he did. He saw the formation Cal playing as a left wing back famously first half and then getting a hat-trick in the first 20 minutes of the second when he moves him. But that was into a 4-3-3, 4-5-1. That wasn't the 4-2-3-1 that we saw last night. It was slightly different, not massively. And as I always say, these formations, they're not night and day difference all the while. And whatever formation you put out, it is helped enormously by players playing well, passing the ball quickly, accurately, controlling the ball well, having sharp movement and being lively with it. It doesn't matter what formation you play. If you're not at it, then the formation doesn't particularly help you. But last night, I thought the back four, although it got tested a little bit at times, it wasn't put under massive pressure. I think for me, the acid test would have been, had we been playing a Chesterfield or a Stockport last night, would we have played 4-2-3-1? We may well have done, again, because I think Ian Birchall is a proactive manager. He's not afraid of changing things. And he trusts his players as well. He thinks he's got good players, which he has, and he will trust them whichever way they go. But it would have been a little bit more interesting. I think the Richard Brindley is an out-and-out centre-half in a 4 against Barnet, absolutely fine. And he did really well, and, he's been good all season. But whether he'd have done that if we'd have been up against two big brutes of centre forwards, or a Bromley, for instance, or a Chesterfield, I don't know. And we never will know. So it's the infamous sort of what would have been, what if scenario. But all we care about is it worked last night, and I imagine he may well keep it the same for Halifax on Saturday. Although with it being FA Trophy, there's going to be changes that maybe wouldn't be made if it was a league game.
Tim Lynham says each time we switch to 4 at the back, we've been far better as an attacking force, i.e. Grimsby, Kings Lynn, both away, and last night. David Shaw, to the joy of the system last night was we got the ball forward quicker and more often. Inspector 71, he's getting a few killer points in tonight. Getting the most out of Cal Roberts has to be at the top of the priority list. Chloe?
Yeah, I kind of do agree with that. Obviously, we've got very important players, but for me, he is, in terms of class, of what his actual ability, raw ability is, he's head and shoulders above what we've got. Don't get me wrong, I could name 4 or 5 players that are great and that are kind of in the top 10 of their position in the league. But for me, Cal Roberts gives us that something different. He's a match winner. Whether he starts on the bench, whether he starts on the pitch, I think he really can be the difference. And last night is him back at his best. We've seen him slowly get his mojo back a little bit. So we know we had a dip earlier on in the season. But I just think him playing well brings everybody else into it. He's not really a selfish player. Especially with him being out on the wing, he's put a good couple of crosses in yesterday, a good couple of crosses along the floor by beating his man. It's bringing everyone else into it. It's bringing up his assists, it's bringing up his goals, and I think it's vital at the minute. And I think we found a good position for him, but in the same breath, I think that he can play in a few different positions and still be effective, and he can bring other players into it depending where he plays. So, yeah, I can't disagree with that statement at all. But, yeah, I just think that this system's work for him, but also other systems work for him. He's that good to me.
Cyprus Ref says IB is pragmatic, will play 5 at the back to start against the top clubs, but agree with Stel, IB will change as game progresses. Still have a little worry about defence, whether 4 or a 5. Shaman Talk, Halifax podcast. Will you 3 be attending on Saturday? I think they probably mean us 3 on your screens. Yes, I'll be coming up on the train from Newark, I think. I'm going to leave it late just because I don't know what the weather forecast is not great for Saturday, is it? So, and you had a game off last week, didn't you? So give us an inside track. Any issues with your pitch, weather forecast, Shaman Talk? Stel, you will obviously be there in the commentary box, I presume. Yep. Chloe, are you there or not there this one? Because you see, you two have done Halifax before. I was trying to get back from Sicily, as you do, to Halifax, and the plane got into Heathrow about half hour too late for me to get the train straight up to Halifax when it was Tuesday night, which in the end did me a favour. Are you giving this one a swerve after the last one, Chloe, or not?
Yeah, I can't make it to this one. So I've got plans in Manchester. So I can say I've been there, I've done that. I've got the t-shirt. I've been there twice now. So, and that, well, I might not even miss it if it ends up getting called off. So we'll wait and see on that.
Shaman Talk says, don't talk about our pitch. We talk a lot about our pitches, away pitches this season. Rest assured. I don't know whether you saw our Mark Ives special, the National League chief exec. We got him on the show for an hour after the debacles at Kings Lynn and Dover. I just hope, as I'm sure Halifax will, you'll keep us fully in the loop. Stel, Kel Roberts, you made a point a little bit earlier about the acid test is against the better teams. Barnet are a certain level, others will be higher. Kelly's one of our players that can make it look easy and turn it on against absolutely any team in this division. He's clearly had his challenges this season. I think he's found it a hard road back from injury. But I think he's probably certainly been our most dangerous, effective player for a few games now. And there are parts of the game when he goes on those runs, doesn't matter who you're playing, Chesterfield, Stockport or whatever, everyone knows what he's going to do, but stopping him doing it is another matter.
Yeah, absolutely. He has been our most dangerous player over the last 6-8 games, I would say. I don't think that's in question. I think, and it's just as well. I think Kyle Wootton's been a little bit quiet. We've not provided too much service for him. I think Ruben's been quiet, gone a little bit off the boil. So they're the three, aren't you? You're looking at the top end of the pitch. But fortunately for Notts, Cal has been back to his best very nearly. He's had his injuries. Let's not forget he missed most of last season. So that's not easy to get over. Not easy. At any level, players aren't robots. Because Messi and Ronaldo move the ball so high in terms of consistency that you expect players to be at their best every single game, week in, week out. And when it doesn't happen, then it becomes, why is that? He's took his time to get into the season, to get his confidence up. Confidence maybe in his body, that his body's not going to let him down, but also then get into form. And real confidence it's not just everyone telling him, oh, you're a good player. It's not just, thinking, 2 years ago, I was unstoppable. It's really genuinely believing that your touch is there, your fitness is there, your sharpness, you're seeing things quickly, your awareness of a game, and just having that little bit of extra zip, a very little, the 1%, the 2% that everybody talks about in professional sport. It's having that real belief that you're on it and you can cause problems. And that's how he looks like he's playing at this moment in time. Whereas 10, 12 games ago, maybe, or maybe more than that, right back towards the start of the season, you'd look at him and go, he's just lacking that real bit of belief. We know he's a good player. He knows he's a good player, but he's just not got that belief. At this moment in time now, he's got that belief. He's getting his goals. He's creating chances. He's dropping a shoulder and leaving defenders for dead, at this moment in time. And that indicates a little bit of sharpness, but also he's going at them with belief that he's going to skin them, whether that's 1, 2 or 3 defenders. And it's great to see. And if we can get that dovetailing with Ruben being in the same space, Kyle Wootton being in the same space, and the lads behind him providing the ammunition and being solid, then, as Chloe said earlier, Notts can put on that performance like last night against anybody in this division when it clicks together.
I want to come on to Ruben in a minute. I'm just getting spooked by Shaman Talk and the pitch because I wasn't fully aware of all this. So our Halifax friends are saying basically our game on Saturday was called off 40 minutes. Yes, 40 minutes before kickoff. Fans felt that the game could have gone ahead. And here's the bit I wasn't fully aware of. The following day, the rugby game, so that would be rugby league, I think, not rugby union. The rugby league game was on. So they have basically wrecked the pitch. I didn't even realise you shared the pitch with the rugby league. Right. Stel, you need to be getting on. Charlie needs to be on to his BBC counterparts. We need to be having a look at this on Friday, don't we? It don't sound great, particularly with the weather forecast for this weekend.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a wet one, isn't it? But believe me, after the Dover trip this year, I mean, we've got that coming on Tuesday. There will be checks going in place very, very shortly, I'm sure, to make sure the game is going to go ahead. Yeah.
Chloe, okay, well, keep us posted. We are, if you like, keeping a watching brief on that now. Ruben Rodriguez, Chloe. So I guess Ruben and Kel are named in the same breath by our supporters, best players in the league, etc., etc., etc. Both have had their challenges this season. Kel is clearly come through the worst, I think, he's had to endure this season. Ruben at the minute, great that he's got a goal. You hope he kicks on, but he's not had the best of times for a little while now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think that can be said about a few of them. I think, like Stel said, a few not great performances back to back, and I don't think there's really anybody that I could pick out by saying you were the best and you were the worst. They were very much kind of virtually the same. I don't know what I haven't had a chance to have a look at what Lee's ratings are, but I can imagine they're not very different from each other. 0.5s, maybe a point between them. As for Ruben, I think I had a look last night. In terms of goals this season, both of them are on 10. That's in the league and the cup. And they've both been through sticky runs. So it just shows you that they've been through them at different times. We're now seeing Cal back at his best. And obviously Ruben's now got a goal, which we're hoping is going to kick him on, because that's kind of what happened to Cal. That's how he grew his confidence, scores a good goal and knows he can do it again. And I think that because I know that they're good friends as well, I can imagine that Cal's confidence is kind of shining over Ruben as well. So that he's kind of getting a breath of fresh air now. Cal's coming back at his best. Kind of they know where each other are going to be on the pitch, and it's great to see. I think the same for Wootton, but I think it's a little bit different with Wootton, because I think Stal said it earlier about the service that he's been getting the last few games. We haven't been getting the ball up front quick enough. We can all see that the past few games. Grimsby, Bromley, Wealdstone, it's kind of the same story. And when we were getting the ball to the box, he was the only person there. And I mean, once your defenders can easily mark one person when there's four of them. So he wasn't really getting a sniff. So it's a little bit different with Wootton. But as for Rodriguez, he's got it. Again, he's another player that's got it. He's very talented. And we've got a tough run of games coming up. No one needs reminding of that. And if we've got our best players playing at their best, it's going to up everybody else's performance. So I think this game come at a really good time. And so could the trophy game on Tuesday as well, could kick us on, especially if we're going to rotate a few people, minutes in legs, and rest a few players. I think possibly you might rest Wootton, depending how Sam is, I suppose. He could also play Mitchell. But I think, especially for a while now, we've really flogged Wootton. And not that you can tell, because he doesn't stop running all game. I don't think you'd ever be able to tell if he was tired or not, because he doesn't stop running. But I don't want it to get to kind of the same place where we're flogging him every game. Now we've got Eli Sam playing well. And I'm glad that he did give Wootton a bit of a rest. It kind of worked perfectly. He kept him on the pitch to score a goal as such. Scored his goal and he came off. So it worked perfectly tactically in that sense. But yeah, I think the right people scored against Barnet, which was brilliant. Obviously, Matty Palmer got his first. And we've got our attacking players scoring again. So it was brilliant all round.
Okay, I'll come to you in one sec, Stel. Shaman Talk said, I did watch the Mark Ives video. If that's the case, did you know about all the pitch inspections, Shaman, Halifax fans, on Saturday? Did it come as a complete surprise? Bromley had clearly made the trip. You know, do we know at 9 a.m, was it said there was going to be a pitch inspection, or is this one of these that's just suddenly catapulted down onto everyone? Stel, Ruben, what do you make of these last few games? And is that goal going to make a difference to him now?
Well, I certainly hope so. What I make of it, I think he's had quiet spell of games. He was playing really well, 8-10 games ago, playing really well, and then he's gone through a dip. He's gone through a quieter period. Now, you could look at that and go, well, that coincides with Cal having a good run, so does that take the focus off Ruben, where you generally have one sort of star man, if you like, not necessarily two at the same time. But I think he's just had a bit of a dip in form. That's no more, no less, nothing sinister.
You don't attribute this to transfer window style. Some fans would say there has been speculation. We have gone through a transfer window. Yeah.
I mean, chicken and egg. What comes first? Was he playing brilliantly before that? Speculation doesn't just happen because the transfer window's open. If there was talks about a move, his agent would have known about it, and he maybe would have known about it November, December, never mind January, the transfer window. He would have been made aware of it back then. So it could have affected him. It could be used, but I think that it's just a coincidence. It's one of them things. Again, at the National League level, you are not going to play your best for 44 games of a season. It's just not going to happen. And if you did, you probably wouldn't see out of 44 games because you would be gone in January because somebody would take you. So look, he's been okay. He's not been terrible. He's just been quiet. He's had a few quiet games, which players of his like him, so they play like in a number 10, a floaty sort of role up and alongside car, looking for space. Some games it just doesn't happen for you. And he's had a couple of chances maybe that he hasn't taken. Last night he takes his chance. I'll pop it on wrists the goalkeeper. He lets that in, and that might just spur him in to go, right, I'm back. Here we go. Cal's flying. I want to keep up with him in the goal charts. They'll both be chasing Carl Wootton. And yeah, I don't see anything too sinister other than he's just had a quiet spell of games, not at his absolute best.
Shaman Talk have just come back on this pitch inspection. Doesn't sound great. No, there was no advance news of a pitch inspection. Fans in the local pub did start to think there might be one. The club just announced at 2:20 that the game was off. Crikey, if you was a Bromley fan, Chloe, and given, we've all seen the Mark Ives piece, and clearly, look, this is anecdotal, but on the face of it, that does seem really poor again. And I don't know whether it absolutely belted down non-stop for 2 hours at Halifax from 12 till 2, whatever, in which case we always understand that. But it would appear that, again, that's not a great advertisement for away fans or for the league.
No, and especially because we're talking really lengths of the country, not quite as far as top to bottom, but so it's a good track, definitely. It's not great because it's not just us it's happened to a lot of people. There's some clubs, so I know for Dover, we're allowing our fans to use the same ticket on their coach, so they don't have to buy a new one, but not all clubs can do that. So these people are having to, especially the loyal ones that will go to the rearranged fixture no matter when it is, and they'll go to all of them, whether they get there and it's cold off and they have to go back another time. And it's money out of people's pockets. And I know, like you say, there's circumstances where nothing can possibly be done about it. But there's a lot of circumstances where there are things that can be done about it. I think that obviously we've spoken about the league stepping in. I think really the clubs should be being more honest. I know there's a lot of smaller clubs in this league, so to say, and they want their money then and there, which is fair enough. That's kind of part and parcel of being in the National League, the revenue, you need it to keep you going, especially the people that are coming up from the leagues below, just try and stay up there and compete, because the budget of the bottom of the league and the top of the season, then they can't even compare them. It's absolutely ridiculous now. It's money that the clubs are spending out on hotels, on their own travel. Like Ian said, it ruins your training schedule. But these clubs need to be more honest of, realistically, is it not going to go ahead? Because when it's that bad, in the morning, I think, don't get me wrong, I'm no groundsman, I'm no referee, but I think I could turn up to a pitch in the morning and see whether it's playable then. Obviously, anything can happen. It can absolutely pour it down up until kickoff. But there's too many cases now that that the fans aren't being treated fairly and the teams aren't being treated fairly. So I don't know who needs to step in and what needs to happen, but there's definitely things that should be happening because it's happening far too often now. And with COVID as well, no one can help that. But obviously we found out last minute with that, but that's not helping. This is just kind of another thing added on to that. So, and then the backlog of games, not just for us, but for everyone else, isn't ideal at all. So hopefully we won't get there on Tuesday and find out it's called off. Hopefully if it is going to be called off, we'll find out a little bit before.
Shayman talked to give us a bit more detail. To be honest, our club never thought the game would be off, as a few say that. I saw images of the pitch that day and it looked playable. Referee just suddenly called it off. I think the challenge, Stel, without going over too much old ground here, is it's not for the club to decide whether they think the pitch is playable or not. The arbiter, as Mark Ives said, it's the referee. And if there's a 5% doubt, if it's 95% the game's going to go ahead, but 5% it might not, the ref can't be arriving at 12 o'clock, 12:30. It's got to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning. Overnight stay, league can pay for it, because with the size of the crowds and travelling followings that we have, now it may be that the home team think, it's no problem at 9. But if the refs say, well, actually, I think this is quite serious, 3 more raindrops and it's off or something, you start communicating that before people are doing all the travelling. It's this lack of communication. And somehow the home club always say, we've played in a lot worse. This was what Dover said. This was what Kings Lynn said. And I'm not accusing Halifax here, but this is what Halifax are saying, but they're playing Bromley, South London, by which time they're all there, never, and are not even given the choice of it. Well, if you go, it could be off.
Yeah, you're right. And Bromley to Halifax is not dissimilar to us going to, well, Dover might be a bit extreme, but it's a hell of a journey to have a game called off 40 minutes beforehand. Now, again, protocols and my thoughts on the National League and the makeup and the way it's sort of governed. Absolutely poor, shall we say. So again, just thinking off the top of your head, what could you do? Well, you have to put the onus on the home club, obviously, because they're there, they see their pitch. So, say, I don't know, if there's any danger of a game being called off within an hour, 2 hours of kickoff, then the home club have some sort of fine, and you watch, they'll get a local FA registered referee to check them pitches, whether it costs them 50 quid, 200 quid, whatever, they'll get them in and get the game sorted out. Whether the National League can afford to put the refs up, whether the refs are professional enough to spend the night before, there, I don't know whether that's viable or not. But if you put the onus on the home teams,
most of the teams, a good half, will travel overnight. Now 5-10 years ago in the National League, they wouldn't, would they? But I'll guarantee you, a good half of the teams in the National League will now travel overnight. So I don't think it's beyond the remit then if football clubs in the National League are travelling overnight, while your refs are either travel overnight or any possibility they need to be there at 9 or 10 in the morning.
And again, like I say, they'll obviously want recompense for that, won't they? They'll want paying extra for that. So that's down to the National League, isn't it? That's down to the FA. Find
your budget for it.
Well, that's it. And it just goes that step closer to being professional, doesn't it? It's organised, professional sort of setup. It's what you would expect. The problem and the frustration, and that's not necessarily levelled at Halifax or Dover or anybody in particular, the frustration that we all feel, and we all say it, that when you get these late cancellations, and we're right, you can have a sudden downpour last hour before kickoff, and it can happen. And in that case, then nobody's got a problem with that, frustrating though it might be. But if it's not like that, which it wasn't for us at Kings Lynn really, or Dover, then you come away thinking, what a Mickey Mouse setup this all is, this league. And you obviously look at other clubs as well. There's got to be, because there's so many of them, there's got to be a better way of regulating it, making sure that it's minimised. You can't stop it. You can't stop the British weather. You get games called off in the league and all that sort of stuff last minute. But it's generally because there's an absolute deluge 2 or 3 hours before kickoff that you couldn't do anything about. The two that we've been involved in, I can't really speak for Halifax's game on Saturday. Can't speak what the weather was like on the Saturday sort of morning, Saturday lunchtime, but it is so frustrating, costly, and it just pees everybody off that surely something should be done about it.
Indeed. Nick G says, a legal week. Mark Ive said he was investigating Mr. Cleve. Doubt they even contacted the club. To be fair to the league, they did contact the club. They have contacted the club. They have done an investigation. I guess the question I forgot to or should have asked Mark, but I will get onto their press office, is are they going to publish the results of their investigation? I.e., are they going to make public, were these two clubs found guilty of any rule breach? Have they been warned as to future conduct? Have they been fined? Because for me, that needs to be made transparent, not, as we said earlier in the conversation, Stel, in terms of the anti-racism initiatives, not swept up under the carpet or swept under the carpet. Shaman Talk, if you're wanting any suggestions for catering, there is the Peace Hall in central Halifax, Courtyard Pub, Shears Inn, Three Pigeons, and the majority of Halifax go to the Three Pigeons. Did you go there last time?
I must say I have been there twice now, both times that I've been to Halifax. So it's just kind of on like the main road. It's about a 5-minute walk, but it is full. It's not the biggest pub that I've ever seen. And there's always loads of Otters fans in it. So they absolutely pile in there. But yeah, and especially last time I think it was raining as well. So everyone was piling in to get out of the rain. But yeah, it is a good pub to be fair. I'd recommend it.
Very good. Eli Soundstell. Whichever one we consider the main game, and we probably consider Dover to be more important than Saturday, although I suspect Chloe and many of our fans may disagree in terms of the importance of the trophy. But whichever game we would consider to be the most important, has Eli Sam now cemented his place in the starting lineup for that game?
I would think so, yeah. I think if he's fit, I know Ian Birchnell mentioned a bit of a cough that he's feeling. I think if he's fit, he'll play Saturday because there's no danger of him playing too much football. He's not played too many minutes this season. So I think he'll want to keep him going while he can without risking him, as possible. I imagine he will start at Dover, no question. Given no unforeseen circumstances, no injury or whatever between now and then. But you play like you did last night, as far as I'm concerned. And from what I've seen of Ian Birchnell's team selection and the way he goes about it, he will start the next league game.
Chloe?
Yeah, I'm in the same mindset. I think he's had a tough run since he's been here. I think everyone knows he's on quite a bit of money. Well, that's the speculation anyway. That's what I've heard since he joined us. And there was a lot of talk of, well, we need this striker, we need that striker. And he's presented himself right at a good time, right after the window's closed. He's kind of shown himself. So this is him kind of putting his stamp on the game. I think he came on in a few games. I think he came on against Wrexham and a couple of other games. And he's really shown that he can provide us something different. I think he's incredible with the ball at his feet. It's just whether he can keep this up. And I've seen him for a few games now, and I think he's got something about him, definitely. So, well, we know he can score wonder goals as well. And he loves a bit of the FA Trophy, especially last season. So, yeah, he's in my starting lineup. Obviously, we can talk about injuries. But, yeah, I think it gives Wootton it can not so much relax, but the pressure's off him a little bit. Even though we aren't necessarily playing him as a striker, more of kind of a wide attacker or a winger as such. But yeah, it's providing us something different, and to me, he's great. And we've already got a chant for him, and everyone loves it. So yeah, if he can keep this game for the rest of the season, I mean, Ian must be rubbing his hands together with the attacking choices he's got. And like Stel says, he's either changing it at half time, or if it hasn't worked the game before, he's changing formation. So we've got rotation. I think we can also speak for Vincent as well, who has not been able to get in the side for a couple of weeks now. And I think we all think that, I don't know what he's got to do to get back in the side, but it's another great player to come off the bench. So we've really got some good options now going into kind of the last half of the season. So it's great to say. But yeah, he's in my starting lineup.
Kane Porter says, definitely start Eli in the FA Trophy. If he plays well again, he starts in the league. Chris Gosling, Eli has played himself into the form where he will be rested for the trophy and saved for the league. That's a massive change. Gareth Jones, Eli starting every game he is fit will do him the world of good. Shaman Tuck, are not taking the trophy seriously. Chloe, from your perspective, how important is Saturday in the context of twice a week league games for the foreseeable future?
I mean, I've said it before, I am a big advocate of the trophy. Is that possibly because I've seen us get to a semi-final twice, and getting to the semi-final of a cup is difficult when you're in a lower league. And this is a really great chance. Again, we speak about Wembley a lot, and a lot of the younger supporters have never been there. It's a great chance. It's a little bit of a difficult one now, just because of how our games have fallen, with it already being Saturday, Tuesday, and now is trying to squeeze cup games in as well. It makes it a little bit more difficult. We can't afford to lose players. Can we afford now for Eli Sam to get injured? I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether we can. And I'm sure, but I've said it before, I think we've got the squad. Don't get me wrong, Halifax away is a tough game. I don't know whether they're taking it seriously or whether they've got a fully fit squad. It's difficult to know until you see that team sheet, what's actually happening and if they're taking it seriously or not. But don't get me wrong, I'd love to get through, but would I be really disappointed? I'd rather us go for the league at this point, just to cement playoffs. We've got a few teams dropping some points now that we've gained on. It's definitely nothing to kind of roll over, but we should have the squad to do it. And I think he might kind of change a couple, not a whole side. I'd be disappointed if he kind of put people we haven't seen for weeks and all of them out and just go give it what you've got. But yeah, I don't think you'll see a whole first team against Halifax, but we'll see. I might be proven wrong.
What would you be doing, Stel, team-wise, Saturday?
I would be. What would I be doing? I think you'll see the likes of Cairo Mitchell. I think Zach Brunt will start. Eli, if he's fit, depending on his calf, if there's any niggle in that calf, any persistence, if it's just tight from maybe a little bit of cramp, then I would play him. But if there's anything that might be anything more than that, then he doesn't play. He's not involved. So I think he will play players that need minutes. I think Aaron Naman might get a start. I think he will make a few changes because we've got Saturday, Tuesday for the next 4 weeks coming up. But he still wants to win the game. You don't want to derail. Say momentum. We've just got that 6-1 win after 3 games without a win. So you don't then want to go back to, well, I'll put out a Mickey Mouse team. It's not meant like that, but I'll put out a team that's disjointed, that hasn't trained together, never played together, and we might get done, and then you're sort of back to square one again a little bit. So he'll want to win the game, absolutely no question. He'll want to win the FA Trophy, absolutely no question, and quite rightly so. But he's not going to do that at the risk of risking his full first team players. I don't imagine Carl Wootton playing. As Chloe said earlier, I think he can get a rest as and when we can fit him in, because he's the one I don't see as with a natural replacement for in the squad. Not a like-for-like replacement anyway. Cal probably gets a breather because he's banging form, but then Cal might want to carry on playing. I think he can have conversations with some players and say, look, do you want to play? Would you rather play? Do you fancy a breather? And it comes down to actually how he sees it. And again, is anybody carrying niggles and knocks? Joel Taylor, Alex Lacey were missing from the 16 last night after playing. Now, do they come back in, or does he maintain well, I couldn't even tell you what formation he's going to play. Whether he stays with a back four, the 4-2-3-1, it's up in the air. And again, that's thrown up by 3 poor results followed by 1 fantastic result. It's now right. Which way are we going when we go forward? So very difficult. I think that's sitting on the fence massively. But I've named a couple of players who I think will start anyway.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Chris Gosling, be nice if we win, but I won't shed any tears if we lose. Although it is likely, and this is, I suppose, from a practical perspective, although it's likely Stockport will win their tie, which means we'd be losing another Saturday league game anyway. The reason for that comment being the next round of the Cup is when we should be going to Stockport on a Saturday, and Stockport are at home to a team 1 or 2 tiers below, aren't they? Cheshire or something like that. So you don't see Stockport not winning, given that they're at home in that one. Shaman Talk says, we've won it, so not too fussed. However, Pete Wild, the Halifax manager, stated to the Halifax Courier that the squad are taking it seriously. Think some of our new signings may start. Kane Porter, although it'd been nice to go to Wembley, the league is way more important. Brunt's Cup tied, says Chris Gosling. Vincent will start, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Dick G says the trophy is the chance for a trip to Wembley, should be taken seriously, but not at the risk of losing players. Neil Woodison, a win Saturday will be good for confidence and momentum. Gareth Jones, will Slocum play? That's an interesting one. We'll have a view on that in a minute. I don't want to be controversial. I would be sorely tempted if I was the manager, God forbid, having heard what we've heard about the Halifax pitch, weather, everything else, travel, and they've got to go to Dover on Monday overnight for Tuesday. I would be sorely tempted to make 8-9 changes. Leave a load of them at home. There's a lot of travelling coming up. Explain the situation and go with a shadow squad so that the players that kind of are on the bench on Tuesday all start. I appreciate that might not be everybody's cup of tea. What I certainly wouldn't want to be hearing is we play a near full strength team and then in another 7 days' time we're complaining we've been playing too many matches. I think I guess it really depends on the manager's view of this 2 games a week. Halifax Saturday sounds like it's going to be a very heavy pitch. Back home Saturday night, off Monday. Not sure. The goalkeeping situation. We've been asked a couple of questions about the new keeper style. What's your take there, Patterson? By the way, these are. I know you like to keep abreast of my shirt collection. For my shirt sponsorship of him earlier this season, or our Magpie Circle sponsorship, these are his hat trick. I've got them all. These are his 3 match worns. No, they're not going anywhere. Okay. You can probably see Mr. Parsons' shirts in the background as well. And I've got Kieran Brennan's somewhere as well. That's the first batch I've got anyway. Goalkeeper, Stel. What do we reckon?
He's played 2 games, hasn't he, the new lad, Vitoslav Yaros? Yet to be convinced, truth be told. Yet to be convinced. But not that he's made any calamities, but he, yet to be convinced, I think is the way to describe it. I think, who would he play? I think he might play him. I think he might play him just to get used to the way we play again. But it's a really tough call, that, because I've not seen his ability with the feet. Certainly not at the level of Anthony Patton, but again, he's had 2 games. So we'll reserve judgment on that. But look, 2 games is not time to judge anybody on. And again, difficult for keepers. So, we'll see. We will see after he's played a few more games. He's obviously not going to drop him. He's not done anything to be dropped. He's not going to change the goalkeepers around for the league games.
No, I agree
not at this moment in time. But, 2 or 3 more games might give us a little bit more clue as to whether he's going to be the keeper that keeps it till the end of the season or not.
If you're Sam Slocum, what's going through your mind? I presume you can't be that happy, can you?
No, and you would be wrong if he was happy. You should never be happy at not being in the team. But then there's not being happy, but accepting it and getting on with it and being professional and doing things right. And then there's sort of throwing your toys out of the pram, having a sulk. And this is one credit, just to go back to Eli Sam, that's a massive tick in his credit column, that he's not had a sulk, he's not had a strop, we've not heard anything bad, negative about him all season, that, oh, I'm not getting a look in, so I'm off, or I want away, or I want this, I want that, or the other. Just got his head down and by all accounts trains well. So I expect nothing different of Sam Slocum, but that doesn't mean that competition for wanting to start will be intense, and he will be wanting to put the pressure on in training, and any chance he's given in a first team game, he'll want to put the pressure on because he'll believe he's the better goalkeeper and he'll believe he should be starting.
Chloe, where are you on the goalkeeping debate?
I don't think I could have put it better myself. Exactly the same with the new keeper. Like I say, yet to be convinced, but in the same breath, done nothing wrong. I think it's difficult not to compare him to Patterson. He just kind of made us tick for a bit. But to be completely honest, I don't think my first impression of Patterson was what I thought of him when he left. I don't think he was kind of blew me away within his first 2 games. And obviously last night he didn't really have much to do, to be honest. I know it's disappointing to concede. Was it really his fault? I'm not too sure. I'd like to see it back, but I don't think there was a lot he could have done with it. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't know. I've just seen someone make a comment actually, and this is what I was thinking whilst I was talking, that I don't know whether he's got a knock. I think he made a comment earlier on in the season that he was struggling a little bit because he keeps throwing himself on the floor in training, and not that he's getting old as such. There's people that have gone on longer, and there's people that have gone on shorter. So I don't know whether he's kind of coming to the end of his career or wants to retire. So maybe it is that he's carrying a knock and he wants to kind of start to shine away a little bit now and come out of his footballing career and end his career at the end of this season. Or it might be a case of that Ian just doesn't fancy him, and not that he doesn't think he's good enough, but thinks that we have better options, something that works better for the team. So it is difficult to tell. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah, we'll see. If it's a case of they are both fit, I'm sure that if the new keeper puts a foot wrong, Sam Slocum's going to be straight back in. And again, he can do it at the start of the season. Before we had Anthony Patterson, no one was complaining about the goalkeeper that we need a new one. I think he was still at the start of the season in the top 5 in the league. He's great at shot stopping. So I've got no doubt that when he does come back in to the side, that he'll fit straight back in. So it's great to have competition in places. And yeah, I hope that he just keeps his head up and gets on with it in training.
There's one name that's not been mentioned. Tiernan Brooks, still. So we saw him play in the pre-season games. And I tell you, he looked the part. And sometimes we Tyrese Palmer not got anywhere near it so far this season. Tiernan hasn't had what you would call a proper Notts County game. Yeah. And sometimes when you throw these young players in, you never quite know how they're going to react. They might fold. They might put in a worldie. And then they just seem to go on from nowhere and put a whole string of performances together. And in the space of 2 months, they've kind of, boys to men. And I just, I've never played the game. But I just wonder if you're Tiernan Brooks, Tyrese, does that chance galvanise you? Or is it a case of doing a lot more in training to earn the chance in the eye of the manager?
Yes, in a nutshell, to that last bit. I mean, the fact of the matter is, in football, when you're young and you're trying to make your way through, you have got to do and show more maybe than somebody who's established in the first team, established as a professional, because they've got a bit of a CV, a bit of credit in the bank, if you like, whatever you want to call it, because You know, with them players, them seasoned players, that they can handle a league game, a crowd. You know, when it comes to the crunch, you know they can handle it. Ability then is the defining factor. When you're young, as you've just said, and particularly with a goalkeeper, I mean, it's a slightly different situation, I think, with a goalkeeper than an outfield player, is that you don't want them learning on the job, if you like. So I think they've done the right thing with Tiernan Brooks. You're right, pre-season looks the part, you know, looks like, but there's a million miles between a pre-season game and a league game when there's everything riding on it. You hear these young lads who come maybe from under 21s academy teams from maybe it's Premier League or the Championship or whatever. When they come out on loan, whether it's League Two, whether it's the National League, the first thing they say after the game is, "Oh, this is different because it's all about the result." And what you're used to playing in when it's not is a technical sort of I would say a training sort of match, if you like, but it's more based on the performance, improving your techniques. Let's have a look at what they do. But there's no pressure on that really at all. So to judge somebody who's only played youth team games, behind closed door games, pre-season friendlies, and then say, yes, you're right to play in the first team, for a goalkeeper, I would say very difficult. It makes perfect sense to me to say, send him out on loan to get him some men's football where it is all about the result, no matter too much about what the level is. It's about where it's all about the result, where you might get knocked, where you might get centre forwards coming and leaving a bit on you. You might get hustled up at a corner and things like that, you know, and how do you handle that? And get the reports back from the team he's on loan at. Obviously, they'll be speaking. They might even send somebody to watch and see how he handles that as a stepping stone to potentially, can he then make it in Notts first team? As an outfield player, it's pretty much similar, although you can take a bit more of a gamble with an outfield player who's shown ability, shown promise, like Tyrese Palmer got his chance under Neil Ardley, because he'd obviously seen in training, he's lively. God, he can make something happen. He can do. He's a striker, so I can put him in, and if he has an off day, I can bring him off after 45 minutes, 60 minutes if he doesn't look like he can handle it. And it's probably not going to impact the result of the game too much. With a goalkeeper, if you have a goalkeeper that can't handle it and isn't up to it, you've lost a game. And that is the difference between being a goalkeeper and an outfield player, where you're one of 10 outfield players. You can be covered up. Like poor performances from senior players get covered up and swallowed up in matches. If your goalkeeper has a mare, you generally lose the game.
Interesting. Zedo, this isn't a bad team. Slocum, DKE, Rawlo, Chicks, ? Francis, Vincent, O'Brien, Namane, Mitchell, Sam. So that's kind of like about 8 or 9 changes. That's not bad. That's not bad for me. Shaman Talk, I wonder if we will open the Skircoat stand for Notts, but it all depends on how many you bring. I think you have to bring 500 plus to open that stand. Lippy Jane, is it cash on the turnstiles? Yes, it is, which is good in a way because you're not having to spend money out and not sure if it's going to be postponed. So it is cash on the day, or at least pay on the day with credit card at the ticket office or whatever way they do it. Stel, Connor Rawlinson. What's happened to Connor? On the face of it, the big man, the big centre half. We've played Wealdstone, big strong team. We've played Bromley. He's not started for a little while now.
No, he hasn't. And what has happened to him, I don't know, is the honest answer. I don't know whether he's had a knock and that started it and he's just out of favour. I don't know. I think he's fit again now. Obviously, he was on the bench, but just out of favour. I think is the situation. Like a few players, and you have to be patient, and you have to bide your time, and you have to wait for your opportunity to get a chance again. But that's the beauty. You say about that good team, whoever the guy was that brought that in, or whoever it was that said that in. We have got competition for places. I think there's only Jim O'Brien that isn't fit at this moment in time, isn't fit and available. But we have got competition for places, and you could name various teams, various permutations of all the players, and you'd go, do you know what? That's not a bad team. That is not a bad team at all. So when everyone's fit, as they are, let's say, barring Jim, we've got competition for places. Particularly now Eli's come in and done what he's done, and bumped himself. He's probably leapfrogged Cairo Mitchell now as the sort of first change off the bench if he was on the bench, but now he's going to start. So that's what everybody's got to do. And Connell as a centre half, Alex Lacey was in the team. He's now missed out and he wasn't in the 16. Is he now behind Connell Rawlinson? We don't know. It depends how Ian Birchnell's thinking and how he's going to shuffle his pack for Saturday. Be intriguing and be very interesting. But what you do know is now with everybody fit, barring Jim, that when you get a shirt as a player, you've got to perform because there is somebody else ready and raring on the sidelines to come and take your place.
Chloe, let's finish with you. So you're not there Saturday. Are you going to bother with Dover, or have you been put off Dover for life?
Well, luckily that decision was made for me, so I'll be in Paris. So I'm not quite Dover, a little bit further south than you guys. So I'll be keeping an eye out. But that decision was made for me. That was already booked, which I'm quite glad about. I'm quite glad that I'm not having to make that trip on a Tuesday night. But yeah,
but you're nearer to Dover in Paris than you are in Nottingham, aren't you?
Yeah,
Can't you get the Eurostar, get out somewhere? Does it stop anywhere at Ashford anymore? I don't know.
I must not be far because it's only, Dover's right on the edge, isn't it? And Paris isn't too deep into France. So yeah, it could probably hear you if you make a bit of noise.
Yeah, well, it will be the hardcore. I shall be there. I've booked into a travel lodge. 28 quid, eh? Are you stopping over still, Dover, or are you there and back? We've
tried to not think about it. I think we're gonna do it on the day. I think Charlie's got work commitments the next day, so yeah, I think we're going to do it down and then back through the night. This wonderful motorway system, if we can get back at night. But yeah, like I say, but I think that's Charlie's work commitments and one or two bits I've got on. But yeah, we're looking forward to that, obviously, like everybody is.
Oh dear, I know. But first, Halifax, and Shaman Talk have spooked us a bit with the ground. We shall be following with interest. And it's not cheap there, according to Shaman Talk. At 21 quid, Halifax. Was it 21 quid last time you went, Chloe?
I honestly can't remember. Obviously, I didn't pay the adult price, so I'm not sure what it was. But I imagine the cup game is not going to be. I can't imagine it's any cheaper because £21 is kind of the top of the bracket. So I imagine it's the same price for the league as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll have me £21 in cash at the ready for Saturday. Let's hope I can get a chance to spend it. Mark, thank you as always for joining us this evening, giving up your time. Chloe, glad you've hot-footed it back to Manchester in time. Have a good rest of the week. We look forward to catching up with everyone next week. Halifax Saturday. Next show Monday. Travel down to Dover on Tuesday. So it's busy time. Look forward to seeing you all very soon. Take care for now. Thanks again for listening and watching. Bye-bye.
Cheers.